Morning, Flosstube. How are you guys this morning? Today is February 2nd, 2020, Super Bowl Sunday. It's a pretty nice day here. I'm a little distracted because there's blue sky and sun, which we haven't seen much of in the last month here. Where I live in Northwest Washington. It's been raining a lot. In fact, there was some landslides yesterday and river flooding, which made it nearly impossible to get to my town on the main thoroughfares. Yesterday anyway. I haven't checked today. I don't plan on going anywhere, so I'm good. But anyway, like I said, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I will probably have the game on. I do enjoy football. I'm a huge Seahawks fan, as we all are in the Pacific Northwest. And so I don't really have a dog in this fight, so to speak. I'm torn some. I still love Richard Sherman, even though he's no longer a Seahawk and he's a 49er. But as a Seahawk fan, I'm sworn to loathe the 49ers with all my will. And so there's that. And I don't really have any opinions on Kansas City. I think Mahomes is a good young quarterback. And sometimes he reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. So, if they win, I'd be okay with that. If Richard Sherman wins, I'd be okay with that. But I'm just glad it's not the Patriots. Let's be honest. So, or Green Bay. Anyway, so this is actually a channel about cross-stitching. So let's talk about some cross-stitching today. I wanted to thank everybody who's followed me in the last couple of weeks and commented. I wasn't sure about starting a Flosstube. As you know, my best friend Melissa encouraged me to do so. And I think more than anything, it's kind of nice just to document my progress. So, that's probably the most interesting part of this to me. And then the interaction has been kind of just a bonus. So that's been fun. And I kind of look forward to seeing what happens in the future. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. And let's get into some stitching stuff. So I did have a finish since I've seen you last and a start. It was a start and a finish. As you know, Melissa and I are doing the year of smalls, where we are going to finish 20 smalls is our goal each. And so I've already completed 2. I completed Lizzie Kate Little Bits June and July earlier in January. And then I started actually January. And I went ahead and finished January. So there you go. It was a quick stitch. Did that this week over the course of 2 days. Very quick. I'm doing these in DMC. I didn't pull the fancy floss for that, but excuse me, I am doing it in DMC, and I think they look just fine. I don't mind on these ones the DMC equivalent on that. So I think that these are turning out very cute, and I'm very excited. I was pretty pleased with my French knots on those little snowman eyes. Sometimes I'm not very adept at French knots, but I feel like these turned out pretty well. So pretty glad about that. So yeah, that's my third small of 2020. So ahead of schedule, which is kind of a new place for me. So far 1 month into 2020, and I'm doing pretty good on my stitching. So anyway, that was a 28 count or a 32 count mystery linen. It probably was from a big box, like a Joann's or a Michael's or something. It's not that great of linen, but it's been in my stash forever, and I just thought I'm just going to use it for these 12 and be done with it. So that's the only finish I have this week. That gives me a $5 credit towards the Stitch for Stash that Melissa and I are doing. We're doing a variation of the Stitch from Stash group from Facebook. We're not in that group any longer, but we're doing our own variation. So that actually gives me a, let me see, I have a $25 Stitch from Stash bank so far in 2020, which is good because I'm going to need it. And I'll tell you about that in a little while. So moving on to whips, excuse me. I already did finishes. So whips, works in process. So I continued working on the suffragette from Little House Needleworks. This is the Stitch Along with Stitching with the Sisterlies, Michelle Bindi, and 2 Martini Stitchers. So I was hoping for a finish. I really, really kind of thought that I would have a finish to show you this week, but I didn't actually work on it since last Sunday. I posted a picture on Instagram on Sunday and said the next time you see this, hopefully it'll be finished. But I didn't end up working on it this week. There was a couple of nights. This was a busy work week for me. There was a couple nights that I didn't stitch. And when I did some other things. So this is where I'm at. If you follow me on Instagram, which by the way, on Instagram, I'm at Wow Princess. So if you follow me on Instagram, you saw this, but this is where I'm at on that. So I'm so close. I just have the words at the top and that top border, that red border that goes across the top to do. So it's not going to be that big of a stitch. I thought I might work on it this weekend, but Magical Stitches has a pop-up going, and this fits 2 of the extra credits that were posted for February. And so I want to save this for those extra credits, and I don't want to work on the extra credits with the pop-up going this weekend. So I'm going to work on this next week and hopefully get that finished, get a couple extra credits for Magical Stitches knocked out, and then have it finished the next time I see you, maybe. We'll see. So, and then the third thing I worked on this week, I went back to Lizzie Kate ABC Halloween. This is one of my Stitch 6s. Melissa and I are doing a Stitch 6 in 2020 instead of a Stitch 9 or Stitch 10. With the 20 smalls, we thought 10 might be a little much. So we're doing a Stitch 6. So this is one of my Stitch 6s. I am doing this on, oh, by the way, I am doing a suffragette on 32 count, picture this plus legacy linen. So that's what I'm doing on my suffragette on. I'm doing the Lizzie Kate ABC Halloween. I'm doing that one on 32 count vintage crunchy mocha. Now I'm so close over here to being done with the first 5 lines. I have a couple letters here. I have a little ghost right here to do, and I got to box in that G for that ghost. And I've got 5 lines done on this. This is a 12-line one. And this is the one I'm using for the pop-up this weekend. So I'm going to keep working on this today. So I hope to be over halfway done with this by the end of today. And I'll be feeling pretty good about that. I love this piece. I think I've said before, this is the second time I've stitched it. I stitched it last year and ended up giving it to a coworker. I am doing a little bit different this year. I'm using most of the called fors. I did switch out the coffee for just a 310, which I think is looking perfectly fine. So I'm pleased with that. So anyway, so this is going to be my Sunday project for the day, and whatever stitches I get done on this. I'm at about 700 stitches already for the pop-up, and I suspect I'll be well over 1,000 by the end of the day, so I can get that posted to the group before the pop-up ends. So in Magical Stitches. And then one last whip, barely a whip, barely a start, but I did start the temperature tree last weekend. And I was bound and determined to get that started. And I did, barely. I chose to do this on 32 count Platinum Lugana. Lugana and Jobelan are probably my favorite fabrics to work on. Uh, and this platinum is beautiful. Now, don't laugh. Seriously. That's my start. But I was bound and determined to get that done. I spent a lot of time actually fiddling with the the color range. She provides, this is from Stitchinmommy on Etsy, and I know a lot of people are doing it. She provides 4 different color ranges to work with, and none of them quite fit the possibilities where I live. I mean, we were down in January, we were down to, I'm doing highs, but we were down to a low of 9. The high that day was 15. And then we can easily hit 100 for a day or two in the summer. It's not common necessarily. It's not every year, but it can happen. And her ranges don't just quite fit that. So I'm actually using her original 20 colors, but then I'm also adding 4 or 5 colors in just to extend the ranges a little bit on the low and the high, just to cover for what may or may not happen temperature wise. That's all. So otherwise, I'm really excited. My goal is to work on that, excuse me, in February and get caught up. Probably going to work my way down to that first branch and get January branch done, and then work up to February so that I can then start keeping up. And then as I kind of move on, I'll get the whole tree done. I think once I get started on it, it'll go pretty fast. So, all right. So I did have a little bit of haul, and considering I'm on Stitch for Stash, that's kind of funny, but I did. The first one was actually a gift from my friend Sandy. Hi, Sandy. A late Christmas gift. She had gone onto my wish list on 123 and found this chart at Stony Creek Christmas in the Pines. I just love those trees and that red bird. Oh. So she got me that chart and then some anchor white threads. Just so anyway, I'm excited. I will probably stitch this sometime this year. So yeah. The next piece of haul I have is actually free. I'm doing the Linen and Threads Mystery Sampler for 2020. I had showed you my finish on that 2 weeks ago. And so on Thursday at midnight, essentially going into Friday, they're in Australia. So they released it at midnight on the first their time. And they actually released it a few hours early because it dropped around midnight our time here on the West Coast in the United States. They released part 2. So I have not started part 2 yet. It is right there in the dark red. And so I'm excited about that. So I will work on that this month as well, and get caught up on that. And then this last piece of haul, a little bit special. I don't know that I would have ever said that I have a unicorn chart. I know a lot of people do. But there's one chart that I've kind of always kept an eye out for. So it probably is technically my unicorn chart. And I do have an alert on eBay for it. And it comes up every few months, usually about once a quarter it comes up on eBay, and I'll sit there and I'll watch it and I'll be like, nope, don't need it that bad. And so, but I keep the alert on because maybe one day I'll get lucky and it'll be for a price that I think I'm willing to pay for it. That it's out of print, hard to find. And that's the problem with out of print, hard to find charts, right? You got to really want it to want to pay for the pricing on it. I have one of those charts. I have, I showed you a few weeks, or well, on Melissa's video that I did with her at Christmas, we showed you a picture of Lady of the Flag that I had stitched a few years ago for my grandmother. And I have that chart. It's one of the original runs from back after 9/11, which was what that chart was created for. And so I have one of those charts, and that chart, I haven't looked on eBay at it lately, does go for a kind of crazy amount of money. And I know that they re-released it in a limited run last summer. Yeah, it must have been last summer. But I still think that the run was very limited, and apparently it's still going for a stupid amount of money. But for me, um, I just like my charts. And even though I've stitched already and I can't imagine I'll stitch it again, I don't know. I like keeping them. So that said, I don't know that I necessarily could pay the amount of money that this particular chart's going for. But an opportunity arose where I was willing to do so because of the circumstances. So Michelle Bindi, Michelle Garrett, Bindi Stitchy, does her auctions every week. She is taking February and March off to spend time with her family and do market stuff, which is good. She works a lot with the mailings that she does. So I think well-deserved 2 months off for sure, especially with market coming up. So I'm excited to see what she's putting out for market. That'll be fun. But anyway, so somebody has donated to her a large, well, I don't know how large, a stash, if you will, of primitive needles, which everyone knows very hard to find. And a couple weeks ago, this chart came up and it's Black Sky. So, and there you, spoiler alert, I won the auction. And I didn't even know that it was on the auction block because I hadn't watched the video. And Melissa, my friend Melissa, Stitchinmommy, had messaged me and she's like, Bindi has Black Sky on auction. And I'm like, what? And so I sat there and watched it, and Melissa and I talked, and this is a chart that she'd looked for in the past as well. And so we decided that we would win this chart. And if we had to pay eBay prices, we would pay eBay prices. Because once I'm done stitching with it, then I'm going to send it to her and she's going to stitch it. So it felt like working together on that was a much more reasonable expectation. Beyond that, all the money went to the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So it feels a little bit better spending a lot of money on a chart like this when it's going to charity, especially a very good charity like the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's, as opposed to maybe just, lining somebody's pockets. And hey, I'm not against open market. I've bought stuff at a price that was out of line as well because I wanted it. So I'm not knocking it at all. It's just that for me, paying that kind of money for a chart that probably they paid 10 or 12 bucks for back in the day, it's a hard pill to swallow on that kind of money. But it was much easier when Melissa and I decided that we wanted to do it together, and the money was going to a good cause through Bindi. So Black Sky, super excited about it. The bummer of it is I don't know that I'll start it this year, but I have it. And yeah. And this was done in silks, and I probably will do it in the called fors. So I will need to save my pennies because that's not going to be cheap. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 silks. Not going to be a cheap one, but it'll be worth it. So anyway, so that's my haul. I'm really excited about that one. So anyway, so for January, just to kind of wrap up January, I had a good January. I worked on 3 of my Stitch 6s. I worked on ABC Halloween, which I showed you a minute ago. I worked on Satsuma Garden Party. I will put a picture of where I'm at there. And then I worked on Little House Needleworks 4 Corners. I've been calling it Weather Vane, but it's technically called 4 Corners. And I finished chart 2 of that. So I only have the chart 3, which is the east and the west. Yeah, the east and the west corners to do. So I actually made good progress on, I think, 3 of my Stitch 6s. I didn't have a finish in January on a Stitch 6. So moving forward, I need to finish one of those coming in February. I did 3 smalls. I did the Lizzie Kate Little Bits June, July, and January, which I showed you today. So I have 3 of my 20 smalls done for my year of smalls with Melissa Stitcher Mel. And I started one of my planned 6 starts. I started Hands-On Designs Knee High. I haven't worked on it since the beginning of the year, since I started. That was my New Year's start. I thought I might start another one, but because I ended up starting on the Temperature Tree and the Linen and Thread Mystery Sal, I didn't actually end up starting another one of my planned 6. So I don't know when the next start will come. We'll see. We'll see how my stitching goes. I'd kind of like to finish 1 or 2 of my Stitch 6s before I start another one, since I've started 3 in January. Too many starts. So anyway, and then for Magical Stitches, I'm in the Wilderness Lodge. Melissa and I are both in Wilderness Lodge. It's the Animal Kingdom resort. I did all the homework assignments and all the extra credits except for watching the movie. And I did the reading assignment as well. So I got a lot of stitching done for Magical Stitches. I also did all of the team stitches. I did the minimum amount on the team stitches, and I've put in over 3,500 stitches on Cinderella's Castle so far. I would have put in more this weekend, but my stitches for this weekend are going to the Wicked Witch pop-up, which then also goes to Cinderella's Castle as well. So that's good. A lot of stitching for Magical Stitches. For February, my goals for February, at least 1 more finish. I am gonna, small finish, excuse me. That'll make 4 out of 20. I am gonna start February. And it's too bad my timing's off on this, because, I mean, stitching in February is one thing, but it's not finished, so I can't, display it. But that's okay. I will get them FFO'd this year sometime and be able to display them next year. So I am going to start and finish February. These, like I said, these are quick stitches. The January one took me 2 days, 2 nights, few hours. So, yeah, they're really fun little stitches to do. So, it's kind of nice to have something like that, to be able to just kind of just concentrate on a couple days and then have a finish. It's like a quick win, which is nice. And then my other goal for February is to finish at least 1 of my Stitch 6s. And that will probably either be Satsuma Garden Party or ABC Halloween. It just is going to depend on which one I kind of get on a roll on and keep going on. Right now, I would probably tell you that might be ABC Halloween. But 2 of, I think, the homework coming up in Magical Stitches this week, I think a couple of them I can use Satsuma Garden Party for. So I may get on a roll with that one. I don't know. We'll see. It depends. So the homework this week, there's like 5 different prompts. I haven't looked at it that closely, but I don't have something to hit every one of them. One of them is a red or a blue thread one, and there's no variations from the color names, or very few, so I don't think I'm even going to bother. I'll probably just do penalty stitches on whatever project I'm working on that does fit one of the other criteria, and just be done with it. I don't mind doing penalty stitches, and this week there isn't an incentive not to do penalty stitches. So stitches are stitches to me, and if it's 100 or 150, it's really neither here nor there to me. So I will probably do at least half of the prompts in penalty stitches this week. That way I can stitch on what I want. I don't want to necessarily drag something out that I don't want to work on, because what's the fun in that? So anyway, and then to go along with my theme of showing previous stitches that I had finished, this particular piece was the first cross stitch piece that I stitched for myself with the intention of keeping. I didn't know it existed until Melissa had shown it to me. It was in a magazine. It was a free chart in a magazine, and you can still buy it. You can buy it from that magazine. I don't remember what magazine it's from, quite frankly, but I know that it's still available, and I've seen somebody stitching it recently, so I know it's still out there. But since I've been an adult and had my first house, which I bought my first house in 2000, and maybe even before that, quite frankly, I've collected sunflowers. I love sunflowers. Sunflowers are beautiful. I love the colors. They're just happy, right? Sunflowers are happy. And so my kitchen and dining room has been sunflowers, or in that color scheme, you know, reds, oranges, yellows, greens, for as long as I can remember. And Nora Corbett did this free design called Sunflower Fairy, and I fell in love. It's on 28 count antique copper jobelin. It's with the called for Valdani flosses, silks, and I stitched this. You're gonna be able to see my backyard, sorry. But I stitched this on, maybe if I come back a little bit, there you go, that's better. I stitched this on in the course of about 3 weeks or less in 2011, in November of 2011. So oh my gosh, I just love it. Just looking at backwards in the video, I love it. So pretty. So the one change that I made, I don't know if I'll be able to show you. I did her skin over 1. She's so tiny that full stitches on her skin just were too much. So I had picked out what I had done and did her little legs and her arms and torso and face in over 1. And I thought it looked so much better. And oh my gosh, look at all that bling. Look at all that Krynic, all those beads, those petals. Ugh. Anyway, this is the first piece that I ever did for myself. And I took it and I had it professionally framed. And I love it. So, and believe it or not, I have at least one more cross stitch piece that I can show the next time. It wasn't a piece that I did for myself. It was a piece that I did for my grandmother. I stitched for my grandmother quite a lot, actually. Since she passed, I ended up back with it. I'm not a fan of how she had it framed. So I haven't really decided what I'm going to do, if I'm going to take it and have it deframed and reframed. The problem with that is that it's a very expensive frame, I know. And I don't know that I would use it for anything else, so I hate to be wasteful about it, but I don't know. We'll see what we're going to do. We'll see what we do with it. Right now it's just wrapped in a blanket, or in a tarp, not a tarp, but a fabric type covering in my garage, which I need to get it out of my garage. But anyway, so I've been trying to sort through stash in the last couple weeks. I'm kind of destashing a little bit, trying to streamline my charts and my threads, and I need to bobbinate my threads. I do bobbins, and I used to do the little individual cases, but then I found this on Amazon, this one, and two-sided, and apparently it'll fit a full set of DMC, which I have probably pretty close to a full set of DMC. So my goal is to try to get everything bobbined and put into that and inventoried, so I know what I do have and what I don't have. I know that I probably have like 80,000 skeins of black 310. I also probably have about 20 skeins of 3371. I mean, there's just certain things I have a lot of, so I need to get everything kind of organized and figure out a better way to kit my projects. And then, of course, I come across things like this that make me want to just drink, quite frankly. One of my last 1, 2, 3 stitch orders, I got these 6 different flosses, fancy flosses, 4 weeks and 2 gassed. Beautiful color palette. right? I wonder what it's for. I don't just randomly order fancy floss. I don't. I got dried thyme and gold leaf, gassed. And then I've got cocoa, Williamsburg, red, bark, and seaweed in weeks. And I'm almost positive all 6 of them go to the same dang project. But I'll be damned if I can figure out which one that is. You know what we need? We need a program where you can go put floss colors in and it'll spit out and tell you what charts the match to. That's what we need. Or I need to take better notes when I order stuff. But anyway, so those will sit right here on the side of my table until I come across the chart that they belong to. Because if I put them away, I'll never remember I bought them. But anyway, so I think that's about it. I've been doing these every couple weeks and that works pretty well for me. I don't have necessarily a lot to share. So I think that every 2 weeks works. I'm not going to be able to do one 2 weeks from today though. I will be in Arizona for a work thing and I'm actually going over the weekend for a personal thing. I'm going to go and visit my aunts and they live in Mesa. So I'm going to the attic. So there's probably going to be some money spent. Now, luckily I have $25 in finishing credits so far. And hopefully Suffrage Act will be done. So that'll give me another $11. So that'll be $35. And I have a $50 gift card that Melissa gave me for Christmas. And so I'll have some money I can spend at the attic, guilt-free. And I'm going to. You know, I've been lucky enough to be able to go to some of the more prolific type stitch stores that everybody, you know, talks about in Flosstubes or that is their LNS. You know, I went to Keepsakes last fall. I've been to Needlecraft Corner in Baltimore. I've been to the one in Alameda, Needle in a Haystack. I don't remember. Of course, Acorns and Threads. I've traveled a lot for my work, so I've tried to go if I can find one. And so I've been to a lot, but I've never been to the attic. Oh, the one in Las Vegas, I've been to a couple of times. I can't think of the name of it, but you know which one I'm talking about. But yeah, so never been to the attic. I'm very excited to hit the attic up, and see what kind of, money I can spend. We'll see. I don't have anything particularly on my wish list for the attic, but I've heard that it's amazing to go in there and just look at all the stitches, and I'm sure I'll walk out of there with product. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do a short video next Sunday just to, you know, get caught up on what I've stitched and then go back to my 2-week schedule after that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And go from there. Anyway, so that's all I got. I'm going to let you guys go. And I hope you all have a good stitchy week. I hope you, your team wins in the Super Bowl if you've got a team. And I hope it's all sunny at your house today, like it looks like it's going to be here. So glad about that. Need the sun. I'm tired of the rain. But anyway, have a good week and I will see you next time.